If your bigleaf hydrangea looks finished in mid-August, look past the faded flower and at the healthy green stem holding it. That stem is the part that matters now. Bigleaf hydrangeas, Hydrangea macrophylla, normally form the flower buds for the following season in late summer into early fall. University of Minnesota guidance puts that period in August and September. So the plant may look as if it is winding down, while next year's flowering potential is already being built into the wood in front of you. Here's the first practical rule. If you have a traditional bigleaf hydrangea, or you do not know whether yours is a reblooming cultivar, mid-August is too late to turn faded flowers, uneven growth, or a tired shape into a structural pruning project. Leave healthy stems in place. You do not need to find a large, obvious flower bud before deciding which wood to protect. In mid-August, the safer homeowner decision is based on the health and position of the stem, not on whether you can point to a fat bud with your finger. And do not try to identify next year's flowering wood by stem color alone. Old wood is about the age of the growth, not whether a branch looks brown and woody today. The healthy shoots growing this season are the stems being carried forward. By next season, they become older wood, and traditional bigleaf hydrangeas depend on that older growth for flowering. That is why the faded bloom in the thumbnail is only a marker that gets your attention. A healthy stem can matter even if it did not carry a flower this summer. Protect the framework, not just the stems with an old flower head still attached. So skip the bud hunt. If a stem is healthy, intact, and part of the shrub's normal framework, you do not need visual proof of a future flower before leaving it alone. Genuinely dead, broken, or badly damaged wood is a different decision. A spent flower is also a different decision from shortening the stem beneath it. If the faded bloom does not bother you, leave it. Deadheading is optional. A brown or antique-looking mop head is not hurting the shrub because it is no longer fresh. If you want the plant to look cleaner, keep the cleanup small. Remove the spent flower at the tip without shortening healthy stem below it. Once you start stepping back, judging the outline, and cutting healthy stems to make the shrub rounder, shorter, or more even, you have moved from deadheading into pruning. That is where I would stop in mid-August on a traditional bigleaf. One taller stem can be annoying now and useful next season. If it is healthy, leave the cosmetic problem alone. Dead or broken wood can be removed because that is not the same job as reshaping healthy growth. A shrub that has become too large for its space needs a different plan. If it is blocking a walk or growing over a window, repeated August cuts solve the shape only for the moment while risking flower buds that are forming for next year. For traditional bigleaf hydrangeas, the normal shaping window is after flowering and before August. There is one practical exception. If a stem is creating an immediate access or safety problem, you may decide that the cut matters more than next year's flower potential on that stem. Make the necessary correction and stop there. A necessary cut is different from using August to resize the entire shrub. If the plant repeatedly overwhelms the spot every year, pruning timing is only part of the problem. The lower work answer may eventually be a better location or a cultivar whose mature size fits the space. One timing point is worth keeping straight. August 1st is not a magic biological switch that flips on the same night in Minnesota, Georgia, and California. Cultivar and climate affect the exact pace. But by mid-August, when current extension guidance already places bigleaf bud formation in the late summer window, the conservative national decision is clear. Do not use structural pruning as routine cleanup if next year's flowers matter to you. The plant tag matters here because some bigleaf hydrangeas give you more room for error. Reblooming bigleaf hydrangeas, sometimes described as remontant, can flower on old wood and also produce flowers on new growth. Endless Summer is the familiar example. That second route to bloom is one reason these plants can still flower after some old buds are lost to winter damage or an earlier pruning mistake. But a rebloomer is not pruning-proof. An August haircut can still remove existing flowering wood, and pruning during the season can delay or shorten part of the reblooming window. Remove only what actually needs to come off. The practical split is simple. If you know the cultivar is traditional, protect the healthy stems. If the tag is gone and you do not know what you have, treat it like a traditional bigleaf until you can identify it. That conservative choice protects flowering wood that may already be setting next year's buds. If you know it is a rebloomer, you have more flexibility when a cut is genuinely necessary. New growth gives the plant another route to flower, but the healthy old wood framework still has value. A broken branch can come off. A purely cosmetic reshaping can wait. And do not use flower shape to decide this branch. Mophead and lacecap describe the flower form. They do not tell you by themselves whether a bigleaf is traditional or reblooming. The exact cultivar name is more useful. If all you know is blue mophead hydrangea, you still do not know enough to assume August pruning is forgiving. That is enough identification for this video. You do not need a lesson on every hydrangea species. You only need to know whether this bigleaf has one route to bloom or two. Once the cutting decision is settled, the next easy mistake is reacting to every drooping leaf with more water. Sometimes the plant is dry. Sometimes the soil already has enough moisture. Bigleaf hydrangeas have large leaves and can wilt dramatically during hot afternoons, even when the root zone is still moist. The leaves tell you the plant is under stress, but they do not tell you whether irrigation is the answer. Check the soil. Push a finger, narrow trowel, or soil probe a few inches into the root zone, ideally under the mulch rather than out in the surrounding lawn. You are trying to separate three very different situations. If the soil is dry below the surface, water. Apply it slowly around the root zone so it has time to soak in instead of running across the mulch or lawn. A quick splash can make the surface look wet while leaving the soil underneath dry. If you use a hose or drip line, do not assume that running it for the usual amount of time proves the root zone is wet. After watering, push the probe back into the soil. If only the surface is damp, the watering did not reach far enough. If the soil below is moist, stop. The check matters more than repeating a familiar number of minutes. If you irrigate with drip, check more than the wet spot directly under one emitter. Roots occupy a broader zone, and a small damp patch can give you false confidence while nearby soil remains dry. The useful question is whether moisture has reached enough of the root zone, not whether one point at the surface feels wet. Now take the opposite case. The shrub is drooping at 4 in the afternoon, but the soil a few inches down is still moist. Do not keep watering just because the leaves look unhappy. Watch the plant as the heat backs off. If it firms up later in the day or by the following morning, heat and exposure may be doing more than lack of water. Bigleaf hydrangeas often benefit from protection from harsh afternoon sun, especially in hotter conditions. A plant beside a west-facing wall, driveway, or other heat-reflecting surface can struggle even while the root zone is adequately moist. For a container, that exposure can sometimes be changed immediately by moving the pot to morning sun with more afternoon protection. For an in-ground shrub, the short-term response during extreme heat may be temporary shade rather than another irrigation cycle. If the same plant collapses in the same hot exposure year after year while the soil stays moist, that becomes a site problem to solve during a better transplanting season, not a reason to keep increasing water indefinitely. That is the stop rule. Moist soil plus temporary afternoon wilt is not a reason to keep adding water. The third case matters just as much. If the soil stays wet for long periods and the plant still looks weak or wilted, stop treating the problem as drought. Hydrangeas like consistent moisture, but their roots still need oxygen. Persistently saturated soil can stress roots, and another watering pushes the soil farther in the wrong direction. Morning recovery helps you read the pattern, but it is supporting evidence rather than a magic test. A plant that looks normal after a cooler night and droops only when afternoon heat arrives is behaving differently from one that is still collapsed in the morning. If it is still wilted early and the soil is dry, the case for watering is much stronger. If it is still wilted early and the soil is wet, more water is not the answer. Drainage, root stress, or another problem deserves attention. The goal is to make the evidence agree before you act. Soil moisture chooses the watering decision. Fixed schedules are weak in August because different sites dry at different speeds. A sandy bed in sun can dry much faster than mulched loam with afternoon shade. A recently planted shrub also deserves closer checking than a well-established one because its working root system is still concentrated closer to the original root ball. Pavement and walls can add heat that another plant 10 feet away never experiences. Mulch can make moisture easier to manage. If the root zone is exposed, about 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch can slow moisture loss and help moderate soil temperature. Keep it pulled back from the stems instead of piling it against the base. If you already have that amount, adding another mound is not an improvement. The goal is covered soil, not a buried crown. Containers deserve closer inspection because a pot can change moisture much faster than the ground. During hot weather, check the mix rather than borrowing the schedule from an in-ground shrub. When the mix is beginning to dry, water thoroughly and let excess water drain. Then check again before the next watering. A small pot, a windy deck, and hot pavement can all shorten the time between checks. The response is more observation, not a universal daily watering rule. If the mix is staying moist, but the plant still collapses every hot afternoon, changing the exposure can help more than automatically adding water. A post-bloom shrub can also look tired enough to send you toward the fertilizer bag. That appearance alone is not a nutrient diagnosis. More fertilizer does not automatically mean more flower buds. Excess nitrogen can favor leafy growth, and fertilizer does not correct dry soil or excessive heat. Late-season feeding recommendations also vary with region, soil, and the program you are already following. So do not invent an extra August feeding because the shrub looks worn out. If you are following a soil test or local extension schedule, stay with that plan. If the plant is heat-stressed or the soil is dry, deal with the actual stress first. There is one limit to all of this that matters for next spring. Successful bud formation now does not guarantee flowers next year. Those buds still have to survive the months ahead. Winter injury can damage old wood and the flower buds it carries. A late freeze after growth begins can damage flower buds. Deer, rabbits, or other browsing can remove stem tips. Severe weather can still change the outcome. August care protects an opportunity. It cannot lock in next year's display. That last distinction matters months from now, too. If the shrub grows plenty of leaves next spring but flowers poorly, it does not prove the plant failed to form buds this August. Buds can form successfully and still be lost later to cold, frost, or browsing. If you want one useful check to make today, look at the plant tag if you still have it. Then check the healthy stems and the soil beneath the mulch. If the cultivar is traditional or unknown, leave the healthy structure alone. If it is a confirmed rebloomer, remember that you have more flexibility, not unlimited freedom. And if the leaves are drooping, let the moisture below the surface decide whether the hose comes out. The faded flower may be the part you notice first. In mid-August, the healthy stem underneath it is the part worth protecting.